Good morning, y'all. Welcome back to Twin Oaks Family Farm in rural Southeast Ohio, USA, showing you a glimpse of load and transport day with our Cornish rock cross meat chickens. Good morning from rural Southeast Ohio, USA. I'm Melissa, and my family and I raise Cornish rock cross meat chickens for poultry production. We like to specialize in small, homegrown, top quality poultry, so we specialize in small flocks of Cornish rock cross meat chickens. We've been working our way up to our biggest flocks and the size flock that we want to top out at. So we've got actually 405 Cornish rock cross meat chickens loaded up here that are going to a USDA inspected processor. We did not take time to record the part of the process where we're actually handling them and loading them into the crates. It's a big job, and all 5 of us are involved in that process, so it's hard to record and load and count the birds all at the same time. Sometimes we get some footage of that, but we didn't today. But this time we're showing you how we're loading the crates onto the pickup truck that is going to haul them to the processor, and just talking a little bit about that part of raising Cornish rock cross meat chickens and taking the processor. So you can see that there are birds crated here. We ended up with 40 crates of actually 10 birds per crate, and then a partial crate, so that one has 5 in it. Generally, when you purchase these crates, the rule of thumb is that they're sized for 8 finished Cornish rock cross meat chickens. We actually did a shortened production schedule with this flock, so this flock of birds didn't get to the size of maybe what the rule of thumb is gauged for, and that's why we fit 10 birds instead of 8 in each of these crates. We have a total of 50, so we only needed to use 41 of them today. But when we do load the birds, it's a very calm process. We don't make a lot of noise. We don't really move incredibly quickly around the birds. We want to keep everything as calm as we possibly can. So we're going to step out of the building here and look at the process of them actually loading them onto the truck and how they're situated there. So, again, just working very steadily and calmly with the birds. I will tell you one thing that is conventional wisdom with chickens and catching them is to dim the lights or try to catch them when it's pretty dark. The reason for that is because their eyesight is such that they don't have a lot of light receptors in their eyes, and they don't see well in the dark. So that's why that's the conventional wisdom. But something we have found with our Cornish rock cross meat chickens is that they're raised in constant overhead light. So we actually don't turn the lights off or attempt to dim them at all when we're loading them. So while conventional wisdom would be turn the lights down and dim them, our practical experience with loading these kinds of chickens into their transport crates has been to just leave the lighting as is. I will show you something that the guys did yesterday. We were really blessed to luck into a couple of old freezers, and we've decided to use them for some feed storage inside our meat bird barn here. So we're actually going to step out of the building and see how they're loading it onto the truck. When we first did this several years ago, hauling birds was really nerve-wracking for me. I don't think it bothered my husband quite as much because he's more familiar with hauling loads, with securing loads onto trucks or trailers. But this was something that really made me nervous. But we found that the birds ride really calmly, and if you make sure that your cargo is securely fastened onto whatever your shipping situation is, that they're going to ride just fine. I'm trying to get a backlight and see here if maybe that doesn't really help a whole lot. So we'll just be able to see here what's on the truck bed. But that's a, what year is that truck, Wade? So that's a 98 Dodge that they're loading these birds onto, loading the crates onto. And it's actually got, I think, about an 11-foot flatbed on it. I'm going to actually try to step around to the other side of the truck here shortly and get it from the other side. So sometimes we also use a small utility trailer and tow it behind a pickup truck and load the, hey guys, morning. The reason that everybody looks so thrilled is because it's about 4:31 in the morning as we're recording this. Get those partial moon. So actually, the family was out here by 3:30 starting the loading process. So that's one of the reasons too that it's kind of hard for us to do the recording when we're doing the loading birds, because this is always the time of day that they're loaded and transported, and frankly just nobody in real life really feels like being video recorded at 3:30 a.m. So, but anyway, it is helpful if you're raising Cornish cross meat chickens, or if you're raising any chickens that you would haul and transport, or if you just are curious about how that works. It is helpful to see the process in motion and get some feedback and confirmation that it can be safely done, and it can be done in a way that minimizes the stress for the livestock as much as possible, and it can be done in a way that's efficient for the people doing the work. So I do have a little backlight over here so you can see a little bit of the pickup truck, but they'll just make sure that all those are stacked neatly and that everything is secured. We don't have an exact weight on how much is in each crate, but it can easily be 50 pounds plus. You guys probably have a pretty good sense of what things weigh. Would you say at least 50 pounds? Wade could be a little more than 50 pounds.
Probably.
Yeah. So I figure the one in the blue shirt there, he probably has a pretty good sense of the weight of it because he actually works at a feed mill. And it's a good opportunity to mention that it happens to be our favorite feed mill, Beverly Feed and Equipment. And so they network to help us get a lot of our supplies from source to farm here. So they're really an integral part of our operation. So couple things before we finish up this video that we gonna at least share with you, tell you about. So as I mentioned, so now it's like approximately 4:30 in the morning. Once we get these birds all loaded and securely fastened, we will start the drive over to our USDA inspected processor, which is an hour and a half away from where we are. It's in Baltic, Ohio. So we want to have the birds there at the time they request, which is before 8 a.m. And then they have a USDA inspected facility. So they have a USDA inspector on site on these processing days that will do live inspection and carcass inspection of the birds that are going through the processing line. So we had spoke for 400 birds when we planned this appointment, which was actually the end of 2023, and we purchased 425 chicks. When we got the chicks from the hatchery, there were some extra chicks in those shipping boxes. So we started, there's actually 433 came in on the boxes, and we really started our flock count with 431 because there was one actually dead on arrival, which we think was due to a shipping lag that this flock experienced getting to us, which extended their shipping time from what should have probably been about 8 hours to a shipping time of about 30 hours. So they got a really rough start in that regard. So we had one, as I said, dead on arrival, and one that had a deformity in its beak. So with the deformity being in the beak, we knew it would be hard for that bird to eat adequately, so we didn't include it in our initial count. So we started at 431. We're taking 405 as of yesterday, and these numbers are a little bit discouraging to even talk about and share, but this is one reality of raising especially meat chickens. They're very sensitive to ambient conditions, very sensitive to temperature flux, and do not tolerate heat, high heat. They don't tolerate that well at all. So that actually can be very lethal for them. As of yesterday, about 12 hours ago, we still had 422 birds. Yesterday afternoon at 1 p.m., the temperature was about 95 degrees, and by 4 p.m. the temperature was 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So it climbed throughout the afternoon. At 10 p.m. the temperature was still 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So it had started coming down, but had a really hot afternoon. So to go from 422 to 405 is a definite example of heat stress that proved mortal for several of the birds. But as I said, our appointment was actually for 400, so we still topped off at our processing number or better. So we have 405 going. So previous history has been that they make the trip well, but I mentioned we want to have them at the processor by the time they request, which is before 8 a.m. And actually that's on the practical side too, of that's the best time to haul these birds. It is cooler. This is going to be the coolest point of the day, and the sun isn't out, so there's no sun. God bless you. There's no sunshine beating directly on the birds, so this is going to be the optimum time to be hauling them anyway. So the guys are getting close enough to the end of the truck bed where they're going to be completing stacking the crates back here. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? Oh, on the temperature. So even though yesterday was bad, we're really relieved that their processing appointment is today and that they're headed to the processor now, because yesterday, you know, we had that temperature climb to 100 by 4 in the afternoon. Today is supposed to be hotter here where we're at in rural Southeast Ohio, USA. So with as seriously and negatively and critically as yesterday's temperatures affected this flock, today would be devastating, would be even worse. So it's bad enough, and it's discouraging to us, you know, that we went down to 405 on numbers. It's really discouraging for the birds that they had that high heat to experience, and that it was mortal for several of them. But you know, like I said, we have to kind of step back from that and be grateful that we still ended up with 400 plus. So these guys really are doing an excellent job. I'm not going to talk on it too much, but you know, I did mention a lot of mortality in the flock overnight. So there is a dead pile of birds to the tune of, you know, what, about 17 of them, I think, just running those numbers quick. So when we get back, we've just put those in one spot for now, and we're gonna make sure that they're secured where we're not gonna have wild animals attracted to them or coming into the barn space. But when we get back, we'll have to deal with carcass disposal